Hey guys, what's going on? I'm David Avalon here with my co-host Robert Drysdale for another edition of Breaking the Guard. It's been a while. I've had things going on. Robert's had a lot of things going on.
Yes.
So, I guess for the people who are asking, hands now without the cast. I also look like I have a short sleeve.
Yes. Yeah, I was just going to say, I just noticed that. Says something about, right, like what you would have looked like with no hair.
Yeah, I know. It's trippy because when the lady was cutting, she said, I'm sorry. I'm like, don't worry, it's going to come back. You know,
man.
Yeah, when they took off the cast, it's like the first time me actually seeing it like this. Like, man, this is weird.
Yeah.
And like I always see myself as like darker brown, but now I look like I have yellow skin.
Yeah. You the hair makes you look darker than you are.
Yeah.
Same with me. Dude, what else is going on, man? So wrist is feeling better?
Wrist is feeling better?
Maybe the training, what, a week, 2, 3? No idea.
I have no idea. So I'm like 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks out from this. I say 4 weeks I'm supposed to be 100%.
So probably some physical therapy, right, in the next 4 weeks?
Yeah, I'm lifting weights now, though, and it hasn't really bothered. It feels pretty much the same as it did before. I'm hoping that improves. Otherwise, I just threw a couple grand for no reason. But the main thing I wanted to get from this was range of motion. Like right now, like you see this. It's like 10, 15.
No, but dude, like you're like what 2 weeks from surgery after? 2 weeks. Yeah, probably another 2, 3 before you gain range of motion.
Yeah, I figure, but hey, it could be worse. It could be hurting or whatnot.
So it's the right hand. I need to wrist lock next time. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
That's the one I go for.
No, it's funny. I think the last time I trained there, I went to roll with Marcelo, that completely destroyed me. Yeah. And he wrist locked me on this arm, and then like a knee barred me on this leg. I'm like, son.
He knows. Who knows? Maybe I'm giving him intel on where your injuries are. Maybe he's listening to our podcast, and then he just like takes notes.
I was like, Jesus Christ, man, have some mercy.
Oh man, dude, what else, man? What's going on? Like, I feel like the fight scene is. Like I like literally right before we started recording on my phone, and I see that Logan Paul is fighting Floyd Mayweather. Yeah. I'm like, what the fuck is happening to this world, man? It's all gone to shit. I feel like I'm living in, like, you know that movie Idiocracy? Yeah. I feel like that's where I'm like, that movie is like, it was like a peek into the future. Everyone was joking and it was supposed to be a comedy. Dude, that was a documentary about the future.
It's pretty wild, man.
It's gone to shit. It's fucking crazy.
I saw a clip also apparently of Jake Paul, or I don't know which one's fighting, Jake or Logan.
I can't tell, man.
But one of them ended up pulling up to, I guess, where Dylan Dennis was.
Oh, I saw that. He's throwing trash at him.
Throwing trash at
that was funny.
But I thought it was kind of funny because whatever, they're both.
It's a prank. Yeah.
But I thought it was lame that he was calling him a pussy, and then he's peeling off of the car.
It's true.
The guy's chasing after you and going by foot. It's like, hello.
It's true. I didn't notice that. I was just laughing when I saw it. That's a good point. You don't get to call someone a pussy and then run away.
Not even run away. Drove away.
Yeah,
you know?
true.
It wasn't even a foot race, you know?
Yeah. But it was pretty funny. Like, the chase in the car, too, just made it look worse, too. It would have been like, if he went the opposite direction, it probably wouldn't have been as funny. But the fact that he's chasing him, and of course he's not going to get to the car, just made it so much worse. But I don't know, man. Like, I think Dana made a comment, too, like the state of boxing today is that. And it's not just boxing, though. It's the UFC as well. It's just not as bad. They haven't gone to that point. Like, UFC, let's see CM Punk fight in there. Like, come on. Yeah. So it's not like they're that different. I think it's important to keep the hierarchy, man. Like, you got to earn your spot in, because you lose credibility. Yeah, you sell tickets, but you got to think longevity. And this is why, like, I'm going to get boring here. This is just my opinions. No one fucking agrees with me, which is fine. But I admire judo because they have that vision of longevity. That's why they keep it respect. They keep the structure. They keep the hierarchy. They keep the order. They keep, like, certain things in place that perhaps sell less tickets. Hey, but they've been around for 140 years, man. They're the most organized martial art on the planet. Yeah. That's sad. And it's because I think that these things have to do with how the culture in the sport, right? I think that if UFC becomes or boxing too pro wrestling oriented, I think they'll sell tickets initially, but they'll lose so much credibility that, I don't know, like 20, 30 years from now, is it going to be around? The thing is, like, a lot of these guys don't care because they're not thinking about the sport itself. They're thinking about immediate profits. Like, how am I, I wonder some of these guys are ahead of the martial arts and sports in general, if they're thinking about the longevity of the sport. Are we going to be around 50 years from now versus thinking, what's best for me right now? Like it's just, I don't know. Like I love MMA. Like I would hate for the UFC to lose credibility, or I'm not that big of a boxing fan, so I care less. But I don't know. I think it's a decision you have to make. I'm not saying my way is better. It's what I prefer. I would like to see people have to earn their spot like the hard way, not, talk their way into doing shit.
I agree with you, which is why I kind of like the PFL format where, it's a tournament and then whoever wins the tournament now fights the reigning champ or becomes a champ, So I think that's nice because, as you said, everything's earned. Nobody was given you can't be like, Brock Lesnar just jumped into the finals of the tournament.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like you have to start from the bottom and work your way up. So I think that's great. My only issue with the PFL is the whole season thing kind of slows things down a lot,
Yeah.
Like I have my guy Jason who's got the combination of the worst and best luck because he jumped into the PFL tournament. He was gonna fight Lance Palmer, which we wanted that fight for him, but then COVID came,
they had to cancel the whole thing.
And they had to cancel the whole season. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding? So now it's like another year he can't fight. I know there were a bunch of the guys on PFL were pissed because I think Lance himself wanted to be released because he wants to keep fighting.
Yeah.
Because he's a little bit older. I think he's like 34 or whatnot.
He doesn't have a whole... this is an important year for him.
Yeah. These are the years that he needs to build,
Yeah.
But besides that, I do like the fact that the rankings mean something, and the way they earn their rankings is always a winning tournament. Like the UFC has a ranking system, but it doesn't really matter.
It's not respected.
Yeah, it's just like it's just there.
It's just there.
What I mean? Like you can be number 7 and still fight for the title.
I think the model. UFC had a great model. It was good. It was as real as it gets. I think Joe Silva came up with that one. And then ACA, the Chechen organization, they have one that goes more fight, less show. And I like that because that's where my mind is. I'm like, I'm there for the fight, not for the show. If there are fireworks, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like if there's like a band playing before or after, like countdown. Like I don't watch countdown. They're not interested in me. But like it's the fight that I'm after, right? But I think as a martial artist myself, from guys like me and you, it's easier to appreciate. We can just watch the footwork and the striking and go, oh fuck, that was a great fight. You know what I'm saying? We don't need. I guess people that understand fighting don't need the hype, but the average fan, they don't see the fight. All they see is the drama because it's an easier language, right? Understanding fighting is complex. It takes a lifetime for you to be able to appreciate someone's footwork or head movement, for example. That's a lot, and that's that's one small aspect of the fight game. Like add the wrestling, the hip tosses, the leg trips, the grab. I mean, there's so many layers to this, and then but the drama is something that I think people innately understand that. It's almost one of those things that I don't think there's a single person on the planet that doesn't understand the novella aspect of things. Like that's why pro wrestling was so successful because it appeals to everyone. That's why like guys like these shit talkers get to sell too many tickets because their audience is so much bigger than the audience of someone like Khabib, who is arguably pound for pound the best guy in history. Arguably, you can make that case. MGSP, who else? He's up there, right? But like he's never going to be as appealing to the average fan as a guy like Conor.
Yeah, just because they can't relate to.
Because it takes you have to have a trained eye to appreciate how good he is. Whereas a shit talking, anyone understands. It's a language that everyone speaks. In fact, even if you didn't understand English, if you just saw the people like at a press conference, the shit talking, I bet you some people that don't understand English could be entertained. By watching the body language, the tone of voice, they'd probably be like, something's going on there. What's happening? Are they going to fight? Like, there's a build up there that every person on the planet can relate to.
Yeah, you could always understand like when something bad's going on just by the vibe. Like you could see even like it's portrayed in alien movies also. You see like, oh, that's not good.
Oh, horror movies know that. Like they know how to build up a momentum to scare you or it's coming. You watch enough of movies in general, they're building up for something,
but I've been like in Russia and I've heard people arguing. I'm like, I know there's something going on.
Yeah,
you can read the face, the body language, and even just like you said, the tones, and that there's something going on, and you're interested. You're like, oh.
So like a lot of my American friends, when they hear me speak Portuguese, my Brazilian friends, like I've heard this multiple times. Like, Rob, it sounds to me like you guys are always arguing. Are you guys fighting? It's like, no, it's just we talk a lot of shit to each other, and it sounds real, like we are insulting each other. We really, because you can tell that we're insulting each other, even if you don't understand the language. You know they're talking shit, but it's in a friendly way. But you don't do it with a smile. You do it with a serious face, which sometimes people think that it's, they're not. That we're serious, but we're not. But yeah, I mean that's funny, man. Like, I think that body language says more than people realize. Tone of voice, facial expressions. I think that's a universal language everyone reads.
It's much harder to lie that way because people are acquainted with lying with words.
Yeah.
So they can say certain things, but the way your hands move, where the hands are, what your eyes are doing, what your face is doing.
Yeah.
You can tell when someone is stressed, like if you see someone really mad, their lips start to tremble and stuff. It's
universal.
Or you start looking away or not making eye contact. That's shame. That's other things going on. People who put their hands like this, it's a guarded pose. Or you put your hands behind your back. So there's subtle cues that you can read that it's really hard to defend against unless you're somebody who's like trained.
And even there's an arms race going on there. There's a social biologist named Robert Trivers, and I think it was one of his books that he made a point that there's a correlation in nature between how deceitful a species is and brain size, proportion to body weight, right? So the bigger the brain, the better you are at lying, right? Now guess who has pound for pound the biggest brain on the planet?
Yeah,
we do,
of course.
Right? So a lot of his research goes like it's about deception, right? That the theory goes one of the reasons why the human brain evolved, and it's because we've gotten so good at bullshitting ourselves first and foremost. Like one of my favorite books that he writes is called The Folly of Fools. I recommend that book to everyone because it talks about self-deception, how you're first going to lie to yourself, convince yourself. And I think it was Richard Feynman that said that easiest person to trick is yourself. Yeah. You lie to yourself first, and then if you believe it, if you assimilate that lie, you can better lie to others, right? But like the idea goes, the brain is just one big bullshitting machine, and other people have to develop detection methods in order to to fare well against someone that's good at lying. And there's an arms race going on, right? So ultimately, we're just looking for the same things any other animal is looking for: economics, like survival, and replication. Someone from the opposite sex. There's a cartoon I saw. I never forget this because it's just so instructive. It sums up like so much about sociology, anthropology, psychology, you name it. There's a little fish in the water, and it's got little bubbles over its head, and it says it's thinking, right? It goes survive and replicate, okay, and then it's crawling out of the ocean and onto the land, so it's like evolving, right? Yeah. It's bubbles, and it's thinking survive and replicate, and then it becomes like a little mammal. And it's thinking, right? The little bubbles, survive and replicate. And then you get an ape, and it says survive and replicate. And then you get a human, and it's sitting on a rock, and it's leaning on its fist like this, and it's in deep thought. And the bubbles say, "What is it all about?" Right? Like if we become like so sophisticated in our thought that I think we lost track of, what we're really all about. And then it comes down to that. If you look at most of our behavior, that's exactly what it is about: survival and replication. We're chasing, members of the opposite sex all the time. We're dressing nice because of that. We want to buy a nice house because of that. We want to drive a nice car because of that. So a lot of the economics of what we do is about finding a mate that is of superior quality. I mean, women put up makeup, it's because they want to look pretty. I just want to hang out with my friends in the nightclub. Bullshit. You don't spend 2 hours in front of a mirror getting your nails done, getting your eyelashes done, all that just because you want to hang out with your friends and listen to music. Yeah. You're trying to get a high-ranking male. Who are you kidding? But they kid themselves, right? Well, you do that because I think it's almost like you have to, because I think the truth is too hard to swallow. It's too hard of a pill to swallow, so it's easier just to bullshit our way to ourselves so we can oh, no, I'm just really just having fun with my friends. Not you're chasing mate. Which is nothing wrong with. That's nature. That's what we do.
Of course.
That's why we work so hard. Why else would you not? I mean, what is wrong with that? Well, of course you want a high-ranking person of the opposite sex. Your children have a better chance of survival. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, we've essentially transcended the food pyramid, which every other animal is struggling to climb up.
Yeah, which is great, by the way.
Yeah. Can you imagine running from tigers every day? Like if you had to come here.
Yes, we've gone a long way, man.
If you had to come here to do the podcast, like, oh Christ.
I know, like there would probably not be a Breaking the Guard podcast if I had to run from tigers every time I came here. Dude, if I had to walk here, I wouldn't do it. And I'm not that far. I'm probably like a 40-minute walk. Like it's not that bad, you know. Like I don't think I've gone too lazy.
But so we don't have that survival thing anymore. It's now we've created like a social game that we have to play. And it's completely foreign. You know, like we have like tens of hundreds of thousands of years of evolution where we were struggling with the physical world. Yeah. And that's pretty much gone now if you're living in, you know, modern society. And now you're fighting this mental world where it's like politics and, you know, networking. And that's when lying has become more important than ever now, right? Because people have to try to deceive each other or deceive themselves. So it's kind of crazy. You know, that's why, I think we talked about it before, but we can find tribes that live much simpler lives. And,
and they work less.
Yeah, they work less, and they're very content. Yeah. They don't have internet or video games or, you know, cars and stuff, but they don't care about that type of stuff. Because they've
never seen it.
Yeah, because they're more grounded in
survival and replication. It's a very simple, our life has become so sophisticated. I don't think we're happier. I don't say I want to go live in the jungle. I'm not suggesting that. I would not want to live as a hunter and gatherer. I have a herniated disc on my lower back. I cannot walk long distances. I have zero desire to chase a gazelle down the African savannah to feed my children. Like I'm happy with the life. But I think in overall, I think those societies, there was far less anxiety and depression, social pressure. Suicide would have been something very uncommon, I imagine. You know, I think it's the suicide. I think what was was it that Social Dilemma documentary? Like the rate of like teens and preteens committing suicide is through the roof. Like it's doubled in the last like 10, 20 years or whatever the number is. And that's a real pandemic, man. That to me is even more alarming. I'm not saying the coronavirus is not a serious issue. I think like sometimes you say stuff that gives that impression. I think it's a serious issue, but I think there are worse things going on and they're just flying under the radar. Yeah. Like the fact that a preteen, like some of these kids commit suicide because they get made fun of at school. I'm like, holy shit, man, I got made fun of more than anyone else you know. I got a massive head. I got a hole in my chest. I grew up in Brazil. Brazilians are brutal when it comes to like making fun of you. Like there's zero political correctness. If you call your mom, that's like the most embarrassing thing in the world, man. Like, you know, it never occurred to me to commit suicide. Yeah. But I think that it's there's something else going on here. Something that's changed. I'm not that old, man, but something has changed in the last 20 years.
I think people, like when I was, you know, a kid as well, I got bullied all the time because I was very shy, overweight. I remember every school year I would get into a fight. Yeah. And pretty much that first fight set the tone for the rest of the year. Yeah. Because usually somebody would...
It determines your rank.
Yeah.
Your rankings.
And since I was a bigger kid, I ended up winning every fight. So after that fight, nobody else like would fight me, but they would still like, oh, you know, little pot shots here and there, and I was a loner, you know? Yeah. But like, I never thought to myself, oh, you know, kill myself or do something like that. It was... I don't think I even had the awareness that was an option. You know
It's funny. No, it's true. It was like, you never thought there was an option.
Yeah, you could be like sad or whatnot, but it's not like, oh, I better kill myself now. You know, like that wasn't something. I think people know so much more now because of the internet and all that.
It's easier too.
And you watch movies and TV and stuff. All this stuff is out there. Like kids now, they know like all about the crazy stuff people doing during sex and stuff, and a lot of it's just from pornography, which is not really realistic. You're not gonna.
No, that's not. It's not that easy, man. When I watch porn, how easy they pick up like the pizza guy walks in and the girl's in a bikini. Hey, you want to massage me? Like that, it never happens, guys. Like it's so unrealistic. But it raises the expectation. That's what the problem with porn is, that it creates an expectation about sex. It's not fucking real. Like very few guys have dicks that are that big to begin with, you know, like women are, they're not that good, and most women are not that good, but like it just raises everyone's expectation. It's not just pornography, it's not just sex, like everything. Everyone's going to live in a mansion in Hawaii, everyone's going to have a yacht, everyone's going to have, you know, the most beautiful wife and the most beautiful husband, and the expectations are so high. Like my grandpa, you know, people from that generation, their expectation was to get by. Like, you know, not die too young and make sure your kids were healthy and fed and going to school, and that was good enough.
Yeah, you know? I that's the thing with the internet. we see the best possible outcomes, and it's magnified.
Yeah.
So it's hard. Like when we were kids, you compared yourself to whoever the neighborhood stud was. That's an achievable goal. More or less, I can be as good as this guy, or at least second.
Yeah.
But when you have all these people. You can see there's like 12-year-old kids who are millionaires from selling something or YouTube.
It's crazy, man.
40-year-old guy, like, Jesus Christ.
No, and my grandpa, he died. He was not rich when he died. He was working in the cornfield when he was 8 years old, and he wasn't rich when he died.
Yeah.
And these little shits, they're useless, man. I'm just watching these people like, who looks? And then I look at how many followers they have, and I'm like, who the fuck are the people? When these guys do crazy stuff like that to make money, it's not me. I wouldn't teach it. I don't like it. But there's a logic there. There's a logic behind what they do because there is a reward, right? You get rewarded for acting like an idiot. Takeshi 69, whatever. Like, holy shit, man. Like, who the fuck looks up to that guy? But apparently a lot of people, right? And it works. But it's just one of those things where, I wonder if they actually admire it or if it's one of those, I think it was like talking to like Keenan the other day, he said something, it's like a car crash, Rob. They don't admire it, but everyone stops to look.
Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe that's what it is. It's not admiration. It is, holy shit, this is insane. This is embarrassing. This is crazy, but I'll watch it for 30 seconds. But that raises their profile, right? So it gives people the impression these people are actually more influential than they actually are, which is a good point. Like, I don't think that many people admire Takeshi 69, right? Or, some of these, the Logan Pauls of the world, right? They're equally useless. But it's so obnoxious, it's so out of the norms, it's so devoid of any value that everyone stops to look at, like a car accident. And then that boosts their profile, so it gives sponsors, it gives people the perception that they're actually more influential than they actually are.
Yeah.
Could be wrong.
It could be. I'm sure there's a segment that actually idolizes them, which is to me the more troubling segment.
That's okay. I'm being optimistic, man. You're touching on like the pessimistic side of things. That there are actually people out there that think that Paris Hilton is awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck are these people? Maybe I know them. I don't know who they are. Maybe they're my friends and they just don't say anything because they hear me talking shit about them all the time, right? Whatever. But I don't know. It's just, I'm just thinking about the Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather thing again. It is kind of funny that he called out Conor McGregor, though, that there's something about that, though, because that's how Conor made his, we were talking about that before the podcast. Like, he got on the fast track to title fight. Not because talented, Conor is a very good fighter, don't get me wrong. But had he not talked as much shit as he did, there's no way he would have made it up there as quickly as he did. Yeah. Challenging people, calling them out, and, like, trash talking Jose Aldo definitely put him on the fast track. So I think it's very ironic that, like, the Logan Jake, what the fuck we're talking about here, is challenging him because it's exactly what he did to people.
And I wonder how much of it'll be interesting to see how big of a pool that Mayweather fight is, because essentially you're banking on Mayweather fans and Logan Paul fans, or Jake Paul, whoever it was, watching the fight. I don't know.
Are they the same person? To me, they're the same person.
Yeah, paying like
Paul.
Whatever, like $60 or $70 for that fight.
Yeah.
It seems preposterous to me. Yeah, like, I don't know. It blows my mind that that's an appeal. Like you said, it's.
But you know what? It doesn't matter, because if you ask, like, the average American who will buy that fight, they don't understand fighting. They've never. To them, it's just drama. They're just watching. It's a car accident, man. Like, you're just watching something terrible happening, but you're watching because you can't stop yourself from watching. But I don't know, man. Like, there's two different views on martial arts, right? There's what judo does, and then there is show business.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you got to that part of my book. It's towards the end, but we need to give some thought if it's possible to have the best of both worlds. Reward athletes and have them being rewarded, because it's a lot of work, man. Like, when I see other professional athletes work, and I've been around them. I've done conditioning with, like, football players, and and it's hard in their own way. But, like, I know I'm biased, but I think fighting is harder physically. I think other than like triathletes are up there. gymnasts, like wrestlers, of course, but like it's one of the hardest sports. You have to rank fighting top 5 hardest sports physically, I'd imagine. I mean,
I think it's definitely up there. I think what makes fighting so difficult, it's not besides the physicality of it, which obviously there's a big element to that, because it's the one sport where you're being rewarded for damaging your opponent. That's how you win the fight.
Yeah.
Football, you definitely take damage, and there's other sports, like apparently cheerleading, a lot of people get hurt. Yeah. But the aim is not to damage, right? It just happens because it's the element of
damage
it.
Both ways, from what people do to you and what you do to yourself.
Exactly. So in MMA, there's a lot of that, but also it's the technical skill.
Yes.
Is so high.
So high.
I think it's higher than any other activity you can do.
I
because
agree.
There's so much variability. Like you could literally, you can almost do anything you want with your body. That might win the fight. You want to do a cartwheel? You can do a cartwheel. It might not work, but you could do it. So like your range
of possibilities is infinite.
It's almost infinite.
And I was watching last night. I started watching that Queen's Gambit. Have you seen it? No, it came highly recommended. When people keep recommending the same thing, I end up watching it. They're normally right. If everyone's saying it's good, like it normally is, except for Tiger King. That was like fast food, sort of thing. It's disgusting, but it's delicious, and you can't stop. But it's disgusting, it. But like the Queen's Gambit is pretty well done. But I keep thinking of my chess analogy, right? Which I make. Like I think fighting is far more complex than chess, and people kind of look at you like chess is supposed to be, because chess is two-dimensional. At the end of the day, it is a board. Yeah. And it's got 16 pieces, and every one of those 16 pieces has one move. When you think about that, compare that to the human body and add the three-dimensional level. And then you add the emotional stress. Yeah. Which is not the same. I mean, I'm sure that if you're gonna play chess with Kasparov, you're probably gonna be nervous. Or like with that computer that beat it, Deep Blue. Yeah. It's like best chess player in the world now is a computer, right? Which is great. But it's not as stressful as getting into a cage. No. And then you get, like you said, technically, man, it's just layer after layer after layer. Like you could do a cartwheel, it could potentially work. It's not illegal, is my point. You see, like it's a very.
Can only move,
there are many more rules in chess, and fighting it's eye gouging, shots to the nuts. What else? Biting. Yeah. And then you can't ask your friends to help you, even though sometimes that happens, but you're not supposed to. But like that's about it. There are not a lot of limits in what we can do, and it is very, very primal in that sense. But it's a very open field of possibilities, and I can't think of any sport that comes close to it in that regard.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it the most challenging. Not the physicality is certainly a part of it, but the wide range of techniques makes it that every player has a unique style. Yeah, right, and it's going to be inherent and the other variability is everybody's body is different. Yeah, right? Like chess, we both have the same pieces.
Yes, that's another one.
So chess is fair in the sense that we were both working with the same starting material, besides being white or black or whatever. But in fighting, it's not. It's you got a guy like John Jones. You're gonna have a hard time.
And no, 100%. And you have certain anatomies that are very specific to certain sports. Like Michael Phelps is blessed for a swimmer. Like if you're really tall, you're never gonna be a good gymnast. If you're really short, you're never gonna play in the NBA, right? Like if you're 6'4" in the NBA, you're like. I mean, I think that like the shortest guys are like 6'4", 6'5", right? Like in the NBA, like it's almost, and it's super hard to make it in. It's you have like certain things about your anatomy that are very specific to certain sports, and not just in the exterior, but on the inside too. Red blood cells, the size of your heart, testosterone levels, like muscle density, like kind of muscle fibers you have. These things all impact your performance. Harder to measure than what's on the outside, but that's huge. And in chess, like it doesn't matter what kind of muscle fibers you have, right? Like like it doesn't impact the game in any way.
So it's purely based on your mental abilities.
Yes, it's a purely intellectual
logic,
intellectual. I think to some degree it's emotional. I mean,
but there's always emotions involved in it because you're human. And you don't want to lose,
and there's a lot of pressure,
and there's
right?
reasons you want to win. There's ego.
100%.
I think I remember reading about one of these chess players that essentially played like a certain type of mind game on his opponent by like, I think he would move his hand around. I forgot there was something that he was doing that was throwing the guy off, and he kept doing it to get in his head and distract him. So like there's always a gamesmanship, just like Conor has that gamesmanship, which obviously against the Aldo fight,
it worked
really well.
With Khabib, it worked in a sense where Khabib was bottling it in. Yeah. It did work. He did a good job of not letting it interfere with his performance.
Right. So it definitely does work. People don't realize that type of pressure.
Yes, it does. You can mess with someone's head.
Yeah.
One more. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you finish your point.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna go one more. I just thought because I just came back from Yosemite, right? And I had seen that documentary Free Solo, which you haven't seen. You should. It's great.
Is that Alex Honnold?
Yes, and he climbs the whole thing without a rope. And then I didn't know this. It's not. They have many different ways you can climb El Capitan, right? So I just learned this when I was there because I started talking to one of the rock climbers, right? And he's explained, no, the one he climbed was over there. This one right here is the Dawn Wall. So there's another wall called the Dawn Wall. That one no one had ever climbed before, with or without a rope. Because that one is like David, I saw the wall. I was there. It's like this. There's nothing to hold on to, right? And there's this one guy, what's his name? Tommy something, right? And listen, this guy, it's the documentary's called The Dawn Wall. It's on Netflix. You're gonna watch it, bro. Like, we're not doing another show unless you watch it. Okay. I'm telling you, have to. It's even better than Free Solo. This guy loses a thumb.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
In an accident, like doing like some whatever, like, work at home and lost a thumb, whatever. He gets better at it somehow. Like, he learned how to use his other, his index finger to hold the little nub. That was his thumb, and somehow it made him stronger. He made it work in his favor, right? And one day, he went through a tough breakup or something like that. And he was just in that shitty place, a dark place in life, and he just looked at El Cap, and he's like, I'm going to climb the Dawn Wall. And then he started studying the wall. He spent like 5 years studying the wall. Like, every time he'd find a little something that could potentially hold his weight, he'd take notes, and 5 years studying that fucking wall, Dave. And then he met this other guy that was about as crazy as him. And they said, we're going to climb it. And they climbed. It's surreal. Like, how on earth? It made me admire. I would never do it for a variety of reasons. I'm kind of scared of heights. I'm too heavy. Don't have the energy. But I admire the sport. I can admire it because it's so symbolic, a mountain, right? Like,
yeah.
And I can't wish I could remember the quotes, but when they're talking about the wall, I could relate so much to it because what El Cap was for him, for Tommy, wasn't so much, I think, the wall itself. I think he was so heartbroken. He was such in a difficult place in his life. Like, he needed something to keep his mind busy, right? So what the El Cap was symbolically to me, like, or climbing the Dawn Wall, it wasn't so much the fact that he climbed the wall, but the fact that he found something to give his life meaning.
Yeah.
I think that's the real finding. And it was like, it kind of resonates with my own experience with life because, once again, the medal is great, but it goes away pretty quick. I think it's the real treasure is the fact that you found something that you're absolutely crazy about and you're willing to dedicate your life to pursue that. That's the treasure. That's why I always tell my students the hard work is the reward, right? Because the real reward is the fact that you fell in love with something. And I think it's almost one of those things that once you get to the top of it, which they do, it's like, oh shit. That's when you lose it because you celebrate and you're happy.
Yeah.
But now what? You got to find something else. You're going to do it again. It's not the same thing. You've done it. Yeah. So now, and when you have, and that guy has raised the bar so high for himself as far as climbing goes, he's climbed the most difficult wall in the world. Like, where do you go from there?
It's a difficult transition.
It's a difficult transition. That's exactly what I'm saying. So, I think that it's almost one of those things where it's almost like you're better off not climbing and just staying in a mindset of like, I got to do it because it's a better place to be than actually having accomplished it.
Well, that's the thing. You have to figure out what's next for you, right? And like, what is your purpose in life? What you're trying to achieve, So for someone like him, I don't know his aspirations and whatnot, but if he climbs to the top and he essentially done something that nobody else will, let's hypothetically say, nobody else will ever be able to do it, and there's nothing better to climb. No. So essentially, he's done with the sport of climbing, right? So for me, the next progression would be, well, I better either get into something entirely different that's going to challenge me in new and unique ways, or perhaps coach people on how to be able to do this. Because it's one thing for me to be able to do it, but if I can get someone else to do it, following my method, it says that I'm not a fluke, or it's not just something because I'm a gifted. It's a combination of technique and skill that's transferable. So that would be one way to channel it, you know. But there's always something you can turn it into, but it's just not the same thing, right? You know, like as a competitor, we have a lifespan. You can only go so far before at a certain point, like that's it.
Yeah.
You won't be able to compete anymore, you know, not at least to the level that you're used to.
Yeah.
So do you just stop doing everything and jump off a bridge and then the suicide option because there's nothing more to achieve? No, like
because now we know about it.
Now we know about it. That's a thing.
Oh, we have that option. I didn't know that.
No, like you channel in other ways. You know, you write about it. We do podcasts. You know, you coach. So I think that's.
But that's like asking the guy Tommy to like climb a really small rock. It's just not the same. You know, it's like I'm sure he still gets a kick out of climbing anything. Don't get me wrong, but once you climb the dawn wall, like where the fuck do you go from there, man?
Yeah, that's why I think that's the transition, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to learn that we're always changing. You know, people who stay static are dead. They're buried 6 feet under, right? Those are the people that never change. So you don't want to be that guy. You got to be able to adapt and move around and do things differently. And I think some people have a hard time letting go of that. Yeah. You know, like, I mean, you know, God bless someone like Mike Tyson that he's still fighting. But I mean, at the same point, it's kind of sad in a sense. It's like, you're trying to hold on to like former glory, you know, like your life.
It's beautiful and it's sad at the same time. You know, it's a combination.
And him and
Holyfield, not Holyfield, Roy Jones.
Roy Jones.
See, shit, just started following me on Instagram.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was like, hey, okay, cool, man. And
I mean, it's amazing that they were able to do it. And I didn't watch it, but I heard it was actually.
I didn't watch it either.
It was a decent fight, you know. But at the same time, like I don't want to see either one of those guys get hurt. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the chances increase dramatically at that age. You know. So I would prefer to see them doing other things. But then again, I understand.
There's something nostalgic about them fighting. There's something about like, I don't know, man. If you ask me this, Rob, if you could choose how you're gonna die, right? And you can choose, like, how would you? I mean, it sounds dramatic, but I think I want to go out fighting, I guess. I'll be rolling him like I choke. I don't know. I'm being dramatic. But like, I think there's something romantic about the fact that he's still in love with that and he enjoys the process of being in combat and being in a struggle. There's something it's beautiful in the sense that, you know, that I believe that fighting is one of the most beautiful things you can do. I know he gets a bad rep, but to me, those people are very ignorant. I think that the human mind is one of nature's greatest representations. Like I can't think of anything that nature has created that we know of that is as complex and as beautiful as a human mind. But I think fighting might be the mind's best expression. Like, and when I talk about fight, I'm not just talking about martial arts. Everything that is good has come from conflict, and I'm not talking about armed conflict. I'm a pacifist. I'm quasi always pacifist. In general, I don't like violence. But when I say conflict, I mean competition. I'm trying to be you beat me. That's how we get better. Like Apple's in competition with Samsung. What happens? Better phones, right? Like, you know, we were in competition with the Soviet Union. What happened? Fuck, man, we went to the moon. We did land on the moon. Stop it, please. Please, for the flat earthers and you fucking crazy conspiracy theorists. You guys get too, like, I got a friend of mine trying to convince me that China's about to invade us through the Canadian border. I'm like, fuck, man, it's getting crazy, bro. Yeah. But, you know, I think that, shit, I forgot. I conspiracy theories, like, lately has been, like, my peeve. I've been actually, like, militant against them. But I was making a good point there, Dave. What was it? Remind me.
Yeah, you lost me a little bit.
Fuck. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm thinking China going to Canada.
I know. And then there's more, man. It's just like every day there's something new, and it's like everything they read is the truth. And if they like it, it's the truth. I like it. It goes along with my ideology, so it must be true. Mm-hmm. And like my recommendation is like, man, you got to pick up that book of that guy that you hate. That's the guy you got to read. You got to read, like, you got to read the Mein Kampfs, man. Like, you got to read Karl Marx. Like, you hate him? Okay, great, read him. Because that's the only thing that's going to get you to snap out of fanaticism is when you see the other side. And it might be even worse than what you thought. But you're not going to know until you actually do the work. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just repeating what you read on the internet or Wikipedia or whatever news channel you watch. And there's nothing productive that comes from just being locked into an echo chamber.
No, and that's the current problem that we have with all this censorship and whatnot that's going on. And
who's to decide? Like, yeah. It's gotten crazy. But at the same time, there's a lot of lying going on, Dave. Like, a lot of these guys, I don't defend censorship. I think that if people want to lie, they should be able to. Sure. But the problem is most people, because our educational system has gone to shit, they are not, I hate to sound, because it sounds so arrogant when I say this, and I'm not saying I'm immune to it. I'm as vulnerable to this as any other human. But I think at some point we all have to acknowledge that, like, skepticism is a good thing. Like, we need to be more skeptical. Sure. We have to question things, and we have to challenge ourselves. And you have to look at the other side, what the other side has to say. You have to. It's the only way, because otherwise, you know, the division we're witnessing in the country, I think a lot of it has to do with the echo chambers, which has been reinforced by social media, and the overconfidence in, like, my side is right, without ever giving thought that maybe there's some holes in this discourse, right? Or maybe the other side has a point. I'll give you an example. And this has come up recently in conversation, right? The term socialism, right? It gets thrown around so much. And I've come to the conclusion that the two sides, when they're using that word, they're not even talking about the same thing. They're fiercely arguing about something that they don't even agree on. They don't agree on what they're talking about. Because when Bernie Sanders, which is a huge tactical mistake, is using the word social. I don't know. I have no idea till this day why he would even use that word in his discourse, because it was such a tactical error, in my opinion. And I'm no political expert, but, like, why would you even, in the United States, out of all countries, why would you want to resurrect that shit, right? But he's using the word. But really what he's talking about is social democracy or mixed economies, or, you know, the Keynesian model economic, which is something that has worked in the U.S. in the past. It's basically, he's a New Dealer, loosely speaking. When conservatives hear the word socialism, they're thinking Marxism, Leninism, which is something that no one wants. But that's what they're hearing. And they're fiercely arguing about something, but they don't agree on what they're arguing about. There's no agreement because there's no communication. So you get one crowd going socialism when they're really saying, like, New Deal. They should be using just the New Deal. That would be a better way of putting it. And then you get the other guys who think that, you know, we're about to turn into the Soviet Union, and they're convinced that we're, like, 2 steps away from becoming a new Soviet Union. I'm like, that is an insult to the victims of Stalinism. Like, you should do some reading what the Stalinist purges were like. Read what the Cultural Revolution was in China. It's like, I finished reading a good book on this. It's called Rebellions and Revolutions by Jack Gray. It's great, like, it's compendium of, like, it's a summary of, like, Chinese history, but it does touch, you know, in some depth the Cultural Revolution. There's none of that going on in the United States, man. It's like, that was like a whole new level. But it has been construed in a way, the discourse, that it has convinced a large segment of the population to believe that we're one step away from a communist revolution in the United States. Dude, I've been to universities, Dave. There are no Marxists. I'm sure you'll find one. I've never met one. And it was 2 years ago, I never met a Marxist. Like, its whole thing has got blown so out of proportion. I'm sure you will, like I said, you will find one, but it's not like they've taken over universities. I was talking to Danielle Bolelli about this the other day, and he's a university professor. It's the same thing. He's going, no, Rob, it's really not that bad. Like, it's exact. I mean, you'll find one every now and then, but they're just mostly, like, 22 years old. Their parents are paying for their college.
Right.
You know, they read the Communist Manifesto. They got excited. They want to be part of the revolution, but they're not a lot of people, and they're not powerful. They make a lot of noise. They may be breaking shit up. I disagree with vandalism on they think it's a horrible. There's nothing good is going to come from vandalism. I don't know what they're thinking, but they're not powerful. They're like hillbillies and fucking God knows where, you know, talking about white supremacy and, you know, pure race, KKK. Right. You're annoying. You're an idiot. You're loud, but you're not powerful.
Yeah.
Like the KKK is not powerful. Everyone's freaking out. Oh, look at those. They're powerless. Let's be frank. They're just noisy, loud, obnoxious, and stupid. You know, it's the same with a lot of this radicalism that we're seeing on the American left. It's like the whole politically correct crowd. Like, I don't like them for a second. I think they've done more harm to the left than, I mean, fuck, man. It's hard to think of a comparison, like how much harm these guys have done to the left, because they're so unreasonable. They're fanatics. And you can't reason with fanatics. That's the one lesson I've learned about politics in the last few years in this country.
No, that's kind of like debating religion.
You can't. You can't even. Don't even bother.
There's, like you said, you can't have an argument if you can't agree on a premise, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was exactly my point. Like first thing, I was watching. Who did I send this? I sent this to someone the other day. It was a debate between Yanis Varoufakis, who's like the finance, the minister of finance in Greece during the meltdown, right? He's a very bright, very reasonable guy, and John Bolton. And they're talking about world stability. It's a great debate. It's on YouTube. Everyone should watch it. And they spent the first like 30 minutes talking like completely different points. Like the moderator never thought it, you know, and at some point he brought that up. He goes like, yeah, well, you guys have very, very different perspectives here. It's because they're not stability to them. They didn't agree what stability was.
Yeah.
So these guys are talking about apples and oranges, and this goes on for the first 30, 40 minutes. And then they kind of start finding some common ground where they agreed and disagreed, right? And that's what a debate is.
Yeah.
We find out what we agree and don't disagree on, and we spend a little more time talking about the disagreements, hoping trying to convince the other person or other people listening to change their minds. Of the first 30 minutes, they're talking about nothing even remotely related because they don't agree on the premise.
Yeah, so it's a non-starter. it's a lot of wasted time there.
Yeah.
But I think we'll finish off with one last thing that I brought up, which was I saw there was a tournament where there was a 14-year-old green belt. Yeah, I was telling you.
Yeah.
That tapped out 3 black belts in a row to win the tournament.
Fuck, man, I
jumped in that open division. Then he beat a brown belt and then beat another black belt.
Yeah.
And the absolute. And I read that thing. I'm like, man, something's going on here. Like, I gotta watch this video. Yeah. And the kid's built like a stud. Like, for a 14-year-old kid, he's pretty jacked up. Yeah. But he was legit. Like, he had good skills. Like, particularly the first guy he was going against had him in some trouble in a rubber guard or whatnot. He was playing. He looked like he was good. You know, he played the part. But then he tried to go into the leg lock game, and I could have told you that would have been a mistake. Young guy, leg locks, they're never gonna tap. The legs are going all over the place, and he got reversed. He got inverted heel hook countered by the 14-year-old kid. And then the other 2 guys he smoked. He got one in a triangle choke really fast, and then the other one, oh no, it was an armbar. It was a weird armbar, and then another one he got in the triangle. I was like,
you know what? It's what happens is, well, first of all, when you're 14, you're very reckless, and so you can get into a 50-50 and go to war very confident because you've never had your ankle blown before.
Yeah.
Like you get your ankles blown enough times, you're like, all right, okay, you win. You know, because you know something happens, you become more what's the word? Not cautious, but like you almost get deja vu of certain situations. Like, wait a second, I've been injured here before, and then you hesitate. Right, because you recognize the situation, and that hesitation is deadly, man. Like it's the end of your game. Like when you're young, you don't have those traumas.
Yeah. So
you just go. You don't give a shit. You're almighty. 2, there's some really good green belts out there because we think green belts. We're thinking a little kid. Like some of these green belts they've been trained jiu-jitsu for 12 years. Like they're 17. They can't be 17, but like 15 they can be. So they might have been training for 11 years. That's a long time, man.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're in the gym, every day or twice a day. And this one happens to be a mini giant too. You said, right? He's actually built like an adult.
He must have been like a 40 or 50, 150 pounder.
Yeah.
But stocky. Like he looked bigger than the black belts he was going against. Like he looked better defined, and so I was like, damn, this kid's like he got a good puberty jump,
Yeah.
I always said like. Everybody's in different stages of puberty, like, especially when you're teenagers. Like some people get to like what I call Superboy status, where some people get to manhood like really early. I know, like I was Superboy until I was like 18.
Yeah, that was me. I was late.
And I felt it because I went against guys who were men, and the grip is an easy way of telling. I remember
oh yeah, that's the first day. You know how strong somebody is when they shake their hand. You're like, oh fuck.
Yeah, I was wrestling this guy. I was at Ralph Everett. He was a 3-time state champion. Really good wrestler. Yeah. And I lost to him 1-0 and 3-2. Close matches. But the time he beat me 1-0, we couldn't take each other down. Went to the second period. He escaped. Got up. He got at 1 point. Then we stalemated on our feet. Third period, I started bottom. I couldn't get up. He just grabbed my wrists, and I couldn't break that guy's grip. It was like a gorilla. I felt because I was Superboy, and he was a grown man, and this strength was just overwhelming me. I remember... I'll say there's a shame, but I tried to cheat my way to open the grip. Couldn't.
Yeah.
Wrestlers, we do anything we can possible.
Yeah.
I literally had my teeth.
You can't.
I
I've seen guys like that.
I was like, Jesus Christ! Like it was like me. Like,
guys like that make me angry at my mom and dad for not giving me better genetics. It's like, why can't I be that strong? You know?
Yeah, this guy was real strong. You know, it's like this kid looks like he got the manhood thing early, but he said, I guess the coach said he was training for 4 years. Yeah. He was a 4-year green belt, and man, he got a blue belt on the podium. Yeah. Which I guess technically you're not supposed to get, right? I think you have to be 16 on IBJJF to get a blue belt. But I mean, what do you say to a guy who just tapped out 3 black belts and beat another one? Yeah. You know, and 4 different guys.
It's rough, man. Like I remember at ADCC, there was a guy that didn't have like one of his legs or 2 of his. I can't remember.
Oh yeah.
Remember, and he was built like bigger than everyone.
He would have been like 6'6" if he had legs.
Yes, he was huge, but because he have legs, he was in the 99 kilo division. And like at some point, like it came up like, oh, they were messing with me, and like, oh, you got him first round. I mean, give me anyone. Like give me like I think the 2 best guys in the division were like Shunji and Braulio. I'm like, give me Shunji and Braulio first match, but that guy because it's just one of those things where, you know, like I as a combination of like I didn't want to win because I felt. I don't know. It's kind of a rough one because you don't really want to lose either. The guy was really good. You're kind of stuck. Like you're going against a 7. My point is, maybe not the best analogy. I'm sorry if this sounds like a bad analogy, but like the green belt is a scary thing to go against.
Oh, for sure.
Because you can't win.
Oh, I know the same thing.
If you beat him up, you're like, whoa, why'd you go so rough on that kid? And then if you blink, you get tapped. Like, and then it's like, whoa, bro, you lost to a, 14-year-old, you know? It's like training with some of these women. Like, they're so good. I'm like, dude, it's a shitty spot for a guy to be in. It really is. Like, I normally train with women, and I train because I believe in equality so much. I'm serious, man. Like, I don't go, like, why would you? I mean, look, I don't hurt people, you know. I mean, if I do, it's an accident. But like, I don't get it too easy either. Like, I might turn it down like a notch, maybe, and that's like, and I'm violating my morals here. I'm going against my ideals because I believe in equality. Yeah. But I treat women on the mats exactly the same because like I don't want to get tapped.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened since I was 16 when I first started training. But I'd hate to get tapped by anyone for that matter. But I don't know. It's a shitty spot.
I know wrestling, that was a thing too. I remember I was fortunate because I wrestled once. I started at 189, 171. I finished off, and you don't find any girls in wrestling at that weight in high school. Although I remember there was a tournament that they were saying there was one, and Rob, I was nervous. Like, I'm gonna have to fight a big ass girl. I don't know.
Yeah, you're nervous. I'm serious, man. Like, you don't want to lose.
Yeah, and oh no, she's 160. Like, oh, thank God.
Dude,
especially when you're a kid, like 15, 16, you lose to a girl.
Oh, yeah, dude, that's embarrassing,
man. It's embarrassing. I'm sorry, guys, but it's embarrassing. Like there was I remember, I think it must have been like a 119 pounder. He's wrestling this girl. He's handling her, but then all of a sudden the girl does a reversal and pins him with what's called like a siren.
Oh, dude, his life is over.
Pins him with what's called, they call it Saturday Night Ride, which essentially is a great mind mount. Yeah. So the mount hips out, so it looks even worse because of the whatever. And he gets pinned, and the father or the coach just berates his son right on the mat.
Oh man,
I was like, Jesus Christ! Like the kid already knows, right? Yeah. Like he's already having a terrible time, and then like the kid ran out crying. I'm like. Oh, I'm glad I'm 170.
Fuck, man. No, 100%. You can't. It's just a shit spot to be in, man. What was I gonna say?
I'll say that, like, very impressive that kid was able to do that, and it's gonna be more of a thing, like you said, because a lot of people don't realize, like, some of these kids. I mean, he started relatively late at 10, you know, but like you're gonna have guys starting at 4 and 5, so there'll be a green belt like at 15. But really, he's
a
like
black belt.
He's
a black belt, yeah.
Especially
if he's the body of an adult, too.
Yeah, and especially if he's been trained the whole time. Like, there's a certain advantage to doing the sport that you're in during, your maturing period. Because your body kind of gears up. Okay, this is what I do.
Plus, your brain is ready to you become better at learning.
Yeah, so like you got 10 years experience, you're young, and like you said, pretty much fearless because you don't know what an injury is yet. Like, that's not an option yet. Yeah.
Dude, I just remind me, like, when I trained with Gabby Garcia, she came over to the gym once. I'm not going to lie, man. There was a part of me that goes like, all right, Rob, A game on. I told this story before, but like my first jiu-jitsu session, I got tapped by a girl twice. I'll never forget that. I had a crush on her too. She was cute. But it went to show me how much this sport actually works. Right, like that's a testament. The fact that a 14-year-old can beat up a grown man. I'm convinced like a lot of like the alpha male types avoid jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu, I think Brazilian jiu-jitsu like more than all martial arts really, but it tends to draw a lot of the nerds. I don't know if you noticed. It's a very nerdy community. These are the kids like teased in high school and they're like socially awkward. Like it doesn't draw a lot of the jocks. All the jocks go to MMA. I think like the jiu-jitsu crowd is a little more nerdy, and I think. One thing why one is like the jock doesn't like to in the jiu-jitsu class is because there's a good chance he's going to get tapped by the green belt, and it's too much of a blow to his ego to get tapped by a girl or 14-year-old. But I think that's the beauty of the art too, is that those things are possible. Not many sports is something like that possible, where like there's that much of a discrepancy. And I mean, sports one are very athletically oriented. I mean, like you couldn't get that in running.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You're not going to be a nerdy runner and with technique be able to run faster than
Hussein Bolt. It's just not going to happen. Like, no one can run faster than Hussein Bolt. But like a grown runner. Yeah. Like and in jiu-jitsu you get the big alpha male dominant looking guy. You get his ass kicked by a 13. Dude, I've seen him more times than I can count. Yeah. It's got to be the shock for some of these guys.
Yeah, and I think that's just a testament to the technique and the skill level involved. Right?
Absolutely.
Which we were talking to at the beginning, why the sport's so difficult. Because, of course, if all things being equal, they're both the same skill set, then the guy with a stronger body is going to do better. Yeah. But usually things are not equal. And if you have somebody and usually smaller guys tend to be much more technical because they need to be.
Yeah.
They don't have the strength or physicality to rely on.
Yeah.
Whereas you can get a big guy that could just squeeze you and not doing proper technique, but he could tap you that way.
Yeah.
So he can just squeeze, and he never has to prioritize being technical.
Yeah.
He could just be big. But when you're like a Mikey Musumeci, like you need the technique.
Yeah. But this is why I was talking to Henzo once, and I always agree, because no one ever agrees when I say this point. Like he said, like, man, I always say that, and he goes, jiu-jitsu's harder for a big guy.
Yeah.
And everyone thinks he's crazy because people think that jiu-jitsu is about winning. Jiu-jitsu is not about winning. Jiu-jitsu is about learning.
Yeah.
There's a difference. It is harder to learn jiu-jitsu when you're big and athletic.
Yeah.
It is easier to learn jiu-jitsu because you suffer more. Because people think suffering is bad. Suffering is what makes you great. You need it. The more you suffer, the higher you rise. Like, so someone who's small is in many ways privileged. That's how you get good, is by getting your ass kicked. They don't realize it because it sucks.
Yeah.
So you're under the impression that everything is going bad for you. But if your goal is to feel good, you shouldn't be in the gym. You should be on Facebook. But if your goal was to actually squeeze as much juice out of you can out of your youth, and rise above and find out who you are and become a better version of yourself through suffering, that's the mat. There is no better place than the mats. The Greeks understood this. Fighters understand this. I think a big chunk of the world doesn't get it, and I really wish they did, because this whole, medal for participating bullshit's got to stop, man. I think it's done so much harm to the world. Like, you gotta let these kids suffer a little. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think that's
I sound like my grandpa, I know, but
hey,
that's how I feel about it. I know, man. Like, my daughter's almost 10. It's like, shit. It's like, 10 more years and, God knows, she'll be pregnant or something. I'm a grandpa. Fuck. I'll be a good grandpa.
Yeah, you would.
All right, man. Dave, I got to get to class, brother.
Yes,
but this was fun. We kind of went all over the place. Yeah, let's do this again. Like, we've been a little inactive. Like, we've been both really busy. But we'll make this happen. Try to get back at one a week. Promise you guys. Thank you, everyone. And I'll see you guys again next time.
Peace.